Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Hey, welcome everybody. The Winning Momentum Podcast. I think we're episode 220.
Wow.
With my special guest today here, Peter Siegel, who is the owner of Siegel Capital and Riusi Capital. Real estate investment, development, management companies specializing in acquisition, development, management of commercial and multifamily residential assets throughout New York. Peter is a real estate owner, investor, manager, entrepreneur, author, business leader, and has been investing in real estate for 30 years. Peter, you've been around as long as I have. I don't get to say that very
tell
often.
People that.
You have well-established infrastructure, property management, construction, investor relations. You have a reputation as an experienced street fighter with a Wall Street background. Welcome to the show, Peter. Nice to have
Scott.
you.
Wow, when you read that, it just sounds amazing. But thank you for that.
Is
that really me you're talking about?
I have in the past with other guests pulled out references and recommendations from their LinkedIn account and read them just to embarrass them because they're so, they're so glossy. But it's amazing when we summarize our careers of 3 decades into 2 paragraphs. It's a lot.
It is amazing. I really don't often think about it. Like I'm just so focused on the future and the day to day and the fights and the problems and the stuff that you deal with every day that I don't really look back. And so to hear that, I think it's amazing. 30 years.
It's important to look back and, when you're dealing with the fires of the day, to be grateful and humble for everything that's happened to you through your hard work over your career. I find that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Peter also has a podcast, The Daily Cash Flow, which can be found on YouTube and where else?
Everywhere. My man George has it on iTunes and all the social media platforms. Anywhere where podcasts are consumed, we're there. Thank you, George.
Excellent. For those that don't see, George is online here helping with the production of this. So, Peter, as I said, welcome to the show. You're a first-time guest. We haven't had a discussion before. I want to give you just the concept of the Winning Momentum Podcast. So you have that for context. So you know what we're talking about, what we try to accomplish on this show. And I listened to one of your episodes in preparation for this. And you and George, in fact, were talking about the number of new businesses incorporated in the US every year or some sort of stat. And we all pick our data from different places. But for me, one of the premises of this entire show is in the US, there's about 500,000 new applications for businesses each month, call it 6 million per year. And because, and it's a huge, huge upward trend from COVID, pre-COVID, even for the last 5 years. And to me, it's driven by social media and the promise of passive income, instant wealth, yachts, airplanes, all this sort of crap, which we all know is not going to come from your dropship company. And the stats are that 90% of these businesses fail. 50%, which might be a bankruptcy driven or some other formal procedure that you can track, but 90% of new businesses never, ever, ever, ever pay their founder a living wage. Yeah. You can't eat and pay your mortgage or your rent from your business. And of the 10% that do manage to pay a salary, 20% of those create intergenerational wealth. In other words, you can exit the business and have have an estate that you can pass on. So in other words, 98% of new businesses never create wealth. They just, so we're down to 2%. And my thinking, multi-layered thinking on why to do a podcast, but one of my thinkings is maybe we can, after our 30 years of experience, provide some insight to these entrepreneurs and help those stats out a little bit instead of doing it one at a time. And from my turnaround work, because you guys don't know me very well, but I'm certainly the top brand in Canada for mid-market and smaller turnaround. I don't mean accounting and insolvency and trustee work, but actual getting in and fixing the business. And we're very active in the US as well. From my turnaround work, you always get this question in your head: when is a business turned around? Is it when it hits break even? Is it when it's profitable? And to me, it's about momentum. I could still be losing money, but if things are getting better every day, that's what I wanted, right? And so that's why we're on the Winning Momentum podcast. And with all of that, Peter, you have 30 years as an entrepreneur, an investor, a business owner. So I'm excited to get your insight into a number of particular topics with that in mind.
Scott, it's funny that you mentioned the 2% of the new businesses that get started every year end up succeeding and creating wealth for their founders. No matter what topic we end up talking about, whether it's you and I or any of the other number of conversations I have during my week with people, everything seems to come down to a significant majority versus a tiny sliver of the minority. We talked just now about 2% of the businesses that get started succeed. We hear all the time about how personal wealth and income comes down to being measured as the 99% and the 1%. When I talk with people about what it takes to get up and get your ass out the door every day and just get through the day in a positive and successful way, we're talking about mindset. It's like 99% of the people don't have the mindset, 1% do. So, college graduates, success at school, whatever the topic is, it's always like, 98, 99%, and then 1 or 2%. I tell you, it's frustrating also. Being an entrepreneur and starting businesses today is so popular and trendy. When you and I were young kids, it meant that you were unemployable if you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Exactly. If you told someone, I want to go be an entrepreneur, it meant that you were just not desirable in a standard traditional corporate working environment. No one wanted you. Certainly that was my deal. I couldn't be employed by anybody. I couldn't sit still. I had the heebie-jeebies. I was bad at taking direction. I had poor reading skills because I had ADD and focus issues. So I almost had to become my own boss and start my own businesses because no one else would give me a shot. But I do see so many people wanting to start businesses. They think it's just going to be an automatic way out for them. And they start businesses, they invest all their money, their life savings, and then they find out they really don't have much and they have to shut the doors and go back to what they were doing before. There's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. There's a right way to start a business. I think you need to research what those right ways are, and people need to get the boxes checked before they start.
Exactly. I love that you said mindset. As I went into this journey of creating content, I hired these grossly overly expensive brand people in the US, and they've been terrific. But it's been quite a journey, and it forced me to understand myself and what I do and why I'm successful. And it turns out I'm the least reflective person on the face of the earth. Like, I had no idea. And so, and I took all my content and I tried to put it into buckets. So what I ended up with was leadership, the math, like the financial tools to running a business, but mindset as a third one. And I had never considered that was an issue, but, overcoming fear, getting your ass out of bed in the morning, as you said, and hustling, how to make decisions and operate in times of uncertainty, which is my segue to the next topic that I want to talk to you about, is how do you invest, Peter, and how do you manage a business in this environment of amazing uncertainty and chaos? We have war, we have a vicious cycle of inflation going on that I don't think anybody gives enough credit to the problems of that. We have rising interest rates, political unrest all over the world, not just in the US, but political unrest everywhere. AI technology advancements, who knows where that's going to take us and what it's going to do. We've been coming out of a pandemic. I guess that's old news now, but still we're sort of slowly getting out of that mindset. It's this whole chaotic environment. And I noted that you did a podcast on controlling your reaction in crisis. And what are your thoughts for entrepreneurs and business leaders just facing our current environment?
Today is so uncertain and it's a little scary, but if you've been through cycles before, like you and I have been through, we know how to have the temperament to get through them. Just today, I sent out a letter to about 400 investors saying that we were going to suspend distributions on a certain portion of properties that they're invested in because things are so uncertain right now. And I cited the inflationary environment. Yes, rents have increased, but operating expenses have increased at a rate greater than the increase in rents. In our markets, we have significant municipal property tax increases this year. All of that suppresses net operating income, and all of that is going to matter for the buildings that have loans that are expiring this year, I think also in next year too. So for the loans that are expiring this year and next year, I told those investors for those properties, look, I want to suspend distributions, not indefinitely, but until I get enough handle around where we're going with values and interest rates. The businesses are good businesses. The real estate's good real estate. But we currently have debt on these properties ranging anywhere from 2.8 to 4.5%. Today, if I have to go replace that same debt dollar for dollar, it's going to be like 6.25%. And 6.5%. And we're going to have to maybe buy down loan balances. We want to have the money to be available to do that. So I'm thinking right now, 8 to 10 months out and 20 months out, because I've got loans expiring the end of this year and the end of next year. So I know that I have to prepare for that potential event of buying down a loan balance, I'm preserving and building up cash. Now, between suspending distributions and building up cash, or sending my partners the money and then making a capital call to them at the end of the year for them to send it back to me, I'd rather suspend the distributions. I think optically it looks better. I think it's the right way to do business. I think it's a prudent move. I wish I didn't have to. But, in the Northeast United States where I operate, there's a lot of legislative and regulatory controls on operating housing. So we've got a lot of affordable housing ordinances and rent controls and things like that. So rental income, I know you do in Canada as well, actually worse than we have here. But so what ends up happening is that income and rents are capped, but expenses aren't. So as the trajectory of inflation takes its hold on your business, your net operating income, or your EBITDA, just gets suppressed. At some point, that's going to impact valuation at the time of a capital event. I'm just preparing for that. So the long answer is I'm preparing for it. I'm preparing for it because nothing in real estate, I think really in business, any kind of business, happens overnight. If you have the lens for it, you can see things coming. Scott, I see this coming. I see the squeeze on net operating income and profits, and I see the downward pressure on valuations. I can feel it. I can see it.
Let me jump into that point, because that was actually a question for you later, but we'll just tackle it right now. Interest rates have basically tripled if you're in the real estate game, and real estate is a leverage asset. You're going to tell from my question that I'm not a real estate guy, so I'm just kind of making this up. But it seems to me that real estate interest has tripled, which means that basically your cash out the door has tripled, because when you're paying a mortgage payment, for the audience, it's mostly interest, very little principal is being paid on that. And so you've done your math to buy this investment property, and it all works. And now a major component of your cash out every month has gone up threefold, but you can increase your rents. And it would seem to me, Peter, that someone like you in your business would be at the forefront of seeing problems coming down the road. I don't mean for you personally, but for the economy. And you must be able to see that not only in interest rates, but in people struggling with rent payments, all sorts of issues along those lines.
I see it. There's a lot of leading indicators in our day-to-day business world that give me little hints and guide me along the way. So I prepare for this uncertainty by being flexible, by looking at data, and by just paying attention. I pay attention to my customers. I pay attention to my vendors and suppliers. I pay attention to the needs of my team. I make sure that they're well supported. It's so crucial. We need great people supporting us in business on a day-to-day basis to help us create these successful businesses. So I get these indicators coming at me every day, and I just, I can see these things coming. Scott, I just got to prepare, and I have to connect dots far enough out in the future that I'm making decisions that are going to be impactful 6, 12 months, 2 years out, not 2 days out. 2 days out, I'm not going to make any decisions today that's going to really move the ship. But I tell you, with the interest rate environment and with the inflationary expense environment, a lot of P&Ls in a lot of different industries have changed. Labor alone has gone up so much over the past few years. I don't know if it's going to retreat back. I have
Never.
to consider that it's not going to. So my
Never will.
P&L is going to look way different now than it did just a couple of years ago. And it was a very quick change. And I think it's going to really tear a lot of businesses apart. So I think cash is a big answer to this. People that have the available cash or access to cash are going to be able to solve these issues and really not be impacted. They'll be able to buy down loan balances. They'll be able to repay debt. They'll be able to fund whatever needs the business has. But people that don't have access to cash are really going to find themselves in a pickle, I think.
Yeah, I think they are, unless they are able to plan ahead like you have. And, I did a couple of episodes on my channel and talked to all of the employees of my company back when the pandemic first hit. And we talked about how we're going to behave in a crisis in chaos. And what I said, having thought, after I thought about it, is that a crisis by definition is an environment of scarcity. It's no longer an environment of abundance where you can get $50 million or $100 million on a cannabis Canadian LP PowerPoint deck with no business plan whatsoever. We're not in that world anymore. And this is a world now of severe scarcity. And when you have that as a leader, when you see that coming, you need to hyper focus on your purpose and what's important to you, and cut out all the fringe, right? And make decisions like postponing a distribution to your investors, ring fencing a fund, for example. We're just seeing that all the time. And my priorities that I stated to my employees, every one of them back then, was I have three key priorities. One is your mental health. And I'm going to, in this time of stress, and I'm going to deal with that by being as open and honest, even if I'm uncertain, which I am, but open and honest as I possibly can. I publicly predicted to anyone that would listen to me that the pandemic would last 3 months. So, I didn't know what I was talking about, clearly, but that was priority number one. Priority number two was the financial well-being of our employees. I need you to be able to pay your rent and feed your kids. Maybe that's not on me. Maybe we have to help you get on a government program. We'll see where things go. And as it turned out, we never had to lay anybody off in our businesses, thank God. So we didn't have that issue. And priority number three was to not be frozen with fear, like I know for a fact everybody else is going to be, and to leapfrog our competition. And the truth is that we bought 3 companies during the 2-year pandemic period.
Wow.
And really move forward with our holdings. So that was cool. But the point is, you need to make the hard decisions when you know trouble's coming. And if you wait until you're in the middle of it, you may have waited too long.
Scott, do you know what the definition in China and the Chinese definition is for crisis?
No.
It's 2 symbols, danger and opportunity.
Oh, really? A yin and a yang. Yeah.
Danger and opportunity equals crisis. I always love that about the Chinese language, that was the definition. Because I'm listening to you and I hear you saying the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, you just, the natural, I thought a lot because most of my content last year was on this mindset issue, and I'm trying to shift now to the math of things for this year. And but I spent a lot of time last year thinking and talking about positivity as one of my cornerstones. Because if I look at a really troubled company, hasn't paid its withholding tax, it has deemed trust issues with the government, it's hasn't paid its landlord, it hasn't, it's dropped down in revenue 2/3, there's environmental liabilities, there's all these problems. Like, why would anybody in their right mind get into that situation? Because you look at it with a confirmation bias of negativity. And so I would never do that if I wasn't positive and confident in my ability, my team's ability to navigate our way out of that situation, right? Yeah. And what I concluded is the trick is not to be positive. The trick is to not be negative. That's the trick, because it's negativity that is the root of all evil.
I love that distinction.
It's the root of paralysis, of fear, which turns into stress and anxiety and health problems. It all stems from negativity. And the only purpose of positivity, as near as I can tell, is to mitigate negativity.
I love that distinction. Negativity is distinctly different then even just being neutral. Like being neutral and benign is better than being negative significantly.
The next topic I had for us, Peter, I think we've already spoken about to some degree, but it was really cash flow management in troubled times and cost cutting. You've done some podcasts on that as well. Is there anything on that topic we really haven't covered yet that you want to throw out?
I feel like when it comes to cash flow management and cost cutting, it's such a big blanket that you have to lay down. You have to look at every single line item. We have P&Ls in our business, income and expense reports. We have to look at every expense on the P&L, every single line item. We have to manage that. And I think for young people today and people that haven't been in business that long, I wonder if they spend the time and make the effort to really go through and manage each vendor and supplier and each line item in the P&L. That's what it takes. All I do is look at reports for my businesses all day long. I mean, I swim in a sea of numbers. So I'm always looking and comparing year over year, quarter over quarter performance. And I want to look at each line item and see what's creeping. If there's cost creep, I have to dive in there and do something about it quickly. Now, I have cost creep in real estate with the big ones this year are insurance, utilities, and property taxes. Labor's in there too. Materials were significant for the past couple of years, but they've pulled back a little bit and have retreated. But I'm unsure where utilities and taxes and insurance are going to be for next year. I'm not certain they're going to retreat back. But I look at this stuff, Scott. That's the point. I look and I manage. I ask the questions. I pull out this month's bill and I look at 12 months prior. I compare the usage. I compare the BTUs and the kilowatt hours. I mean, I compare all that stuff. And I have my team doing that. I think everyone out there in business has to know how to do that, or at least learn how to do that by just pulling out the reports and the invoices and looking. It's so critical. People don't do it and they need to.
Exactly. And when we coach or provide content to entrepreneurs, do we even talk about that? I don't think we do. I think we talk about producing content and generating leads, but we never talk about the numbers.
Well, it's real management stuff, right? Who wants to hear about that? Everybody wants to hear about the yachts and the millions and the sales and the lead gen and all that stuff. But really, that's only 50% of the business.
That's right. That's right. Let's move on to lead gens and sales and business pitches. Now, Peter, we met virtually as part of a global investment group. Are we allowed to talk about that? I don't know what the rules.
Without mentioning names, we can.
Okay, well, so I've said everything I can say then. So we as part of this group, part of what we do is we receive pitches from people looking for money, and let's just say there's an angel investor type group as part of this. And I hadn't, I go about my career buying companies, restructuring companies, taking over management of companies. Investment banking, so selling, mostly sell-side investment banking and financing. I haven't put myself in a position for a long time to just sit there and listen to other people pitch to me. And I'm just constantly shocked. Some of it is awesome, but not much or not many of them. And so you're more in this world. You've been a part of that process for much longer than I have. What's the good and the bad and the lessons learned from that experience? What can entrepreneurs do differently or think about differently in the business pitches?
Like 2% of the new businesses that get formed succeed. It's like 2% of the pitches that you hear end up being real pitches. And what I mean by real pitches is that there's credibility behind the people. The concept is in a market where there's opportunity, the barriers to entry are where you want to have them. The legislative and regulatory environment is there. The cap stack looks right. So it's like a real pitch and you can make an informed investor decision. Scott, I see 98% or 99% of the pitches are just Hail Marys from people who are not prepared. They don't have the background. They look back at the past 12 years and see how frothy things were and the availability of capital and social media. Oh, I'm just going to pitch someone. And they make a pitch and it's not a great pitch. They don't look great having made it. The business doesn't look, I can tell in 30 seconds as you can, as anybody who's done this, you can tell very, very quickly if it's going to be a good fit, if it's right, if it's going to be a high probability of success, and maybe you want to invest in it. Very quickly, we can tell. And I just feel like with all the new businesses getting started and people that want to take the leap and become entrepreneurs and start businesses, we see a lot of pitches from unqualified, inexperienced people. Even the guys that started Microsoft and Facebook and many other examples that we can think of, they were inexperienced when they started, but they've identified something that was a big market segment. They address that market segment. I mean, these are critical things that a pitch has to have. I don't see it a lot today. I just really see hey, write me a check. And it's shallow. I'd like to see more depth of knowledge of the business, more depth of experience from the person pitching. I want to see much better communication skills. Scott, if we can change one thing in the world, it would be to teach everybody how to speak publicly, how to address people, how to communicate. When I get pitched, sometimes, most of the time, people don't have a handle on that stuff, and it's snoozeville. I'm not interested. I'm not excited to hear more, and then the content typically stinks as well. So,
well, that goes hand in hand, right? If you had interesting content, if a pitcher was talking about something that was interesting to you and relevant to you, that's the thing. I think you said this in different language, but they just seem to have zero context of who they're talking to, right? Yeah. If you come into a group of angels and you ask for something that's just that you've never met before, they never met you, and they ask for something completely outrageous in terms of, a quantum of cash, and if we just had whatever $1 trillion, we could do this. Well, it just makes no sense.
Scott, like everything else in business, there's a right way and a wrong way to pitch and seek and raise capital. People need to understand the right ways to do it. You got to be clear, concise, quick, and to the point. You've got about 7 seconds to capture your investor's attention and to get to that next level with the investor.
I come back to that point just in a second, because I think that's critical stuff. I'm just going to give you a couple of my pet peeves from pitches that we listen to. You tell me if you agree or don't agree. One is, to me, they talk about their business, but what an investor needs to know when you get right down to it is, how do I get in? How do I get out? And what happens in between? And no one ever tells you that. No one ever tells you, this is what I'm trying to raise. I'm going to sell you common shares or convertible debt or something. And, there's the valuation. Here's how we're going to exit. There's the 3 possibilities and, the target in between. And here's how you're going to be secure, and we're going to grow this business and create value in between. Do you get that sense?
If I knew that in the first 3 seconds of a pitch, I'd hang in there and I'd want to hear more. But people make me wait like 10 minutes and I'm like falling asleep. Exactly.
And my second pet peeve, and this is not just from pitches that I've listened to, but I just think it's just everywhere through such a period, decades of abundance in capital markets. And I think it's almost more of a US trend than anywhere else I see in the world, is people just manipulate their business into this Series A, Series B, Series D, C, whatever type financing, where they're like, okay, we're at this stage, so that's our valuation. And then next year, we're going to do the next round, will be at this valuation. And they just detach their capital raise from the realities of the business entirely. And their structure is tied to this, this manufactured capital structure, which may not make any sense for where the business is at right now or in the future.
Well, you're talking about capital structure and long-term financing for these businesses, and that's definitely something that people that are newer to pitching would not have a lot of exposure to. So they need to seek out the right mentorship and advice and put together a plan for capital that's relevant and appropriate for their business. Otherwise, without a capital plan, you're just going to be capital constrained. And the 98 or 99% of the businesses that fail, most of them are because of capital constraints.
Exactly, which is my third pet peeve, which is no one ever talks about working capital demands, how much debt they have on the balance sheet. And as you and I would both know, more companies get in serious financial trouble because they grew too fast than not growing at all, right? Yeah. They didn't have the working capital set up and structured for that high growth.
I tell you, once you go through that the first time, it should be the only time. I remember when I was a kid, one of my first businesses, it was a multi-unit food retail business. We had a bunch of small footprint restaurants, quick serve restaurants, and we grew so fast and we were capital constrained. At some point, the rubber hits the road and you have to either bring in new capital or you can't grow anymore and you have trouble paying your bills. And I remember as a young entrepreneur, I was 23 years old. I was faced with really important decisions. At this point, we had like 25 locations, and I had to decide about debt and equity and selling shares and all of the stuff that I was really new to it. And I didn't have at that point, I didn't have the right capital structure and the knowledge about the needs of the working capital. But I tell you, that was the first and last time that I ever was in a position where I wasn't aware. And then every time after that, I was very focused on working capital needs.
Tell me about this 7 seconds to get somebody's attention. How do you think they ought to go about that in a pitch?
Scott, you got to hit me with, well, you just said, how do I get in? How do I get out? And what happens in between? I'm going to add to that. What's the amount you're looking for? Give me a ballpark projection of the return that I'm going to make on my money. Let me know if there's any collateral or security there. Half a second background on who the team is. I just have to know that there's a jockey driving the horse.
And do that all right away in 2 seconds.
All right away. And then we can get into market demographics and
exactly
projections and longer term stuff and supply chain and all the stuff that an investor would ask someone who's pitching. But the first 7 seconds, you got to hit me with the meat and potatoes.
So that's relevant specifically to a pitch for capital right now. Everybody's gathered in a room. I want to raise some money. That's the way I go about it. I 100% agree with you. And you should accomplish all that in 2 seconds. Now, that distinguishes from the elevator pitch. Met some random person and I have to describe my business, or the cocktail reception pitch, or the PowerPoint in a boardroom pitch, not necessarily to raise money, but who you are, who your business is. But the same issue exists. Those are important pitches, and the same issue exists in terms of getting the attention and in 7 seconds. So what I do is I coach people and try to get my clients on that side of the business to have 3 pitches: the 30-second pitch, 1 sentence, the 3-minute pitch, which is an expansion of that. It gives a for example to the 1 second, to the 1 sentence, and then the 5 to 10 minute being that in a boardroom PowerPoint. And what you're going to do in there is you're going to give some credibility to you and your team and experience that goes along with it. Do you have thoughts on that process?
Yeah, I love that. That's a great roadmap. I love that. The 1 sentence, the 10 seconds, the 3 minutes, and then you just expand onward and outward, bringing in more of the data and more of the dialogue that investor will want to hear about once you keep them engaged with you. I love that. For the person pitching, it really prioritizes the things that you need to front load. Without those things up front, you're not going to get me to 3 minutes. So I like a roadmap with priorities. I like that we're talking about setting a hook and having the person that we're pitching to bite. And that comes back to personal communication skills and presentation and marketing skills. We have to know how to speak to people, whether it's about individual issues, pitching a business, whatever it is. We have to know how to speak to people. And certainly we're pitching businesses. We have to know how to do it. I feel like someone should hit me over the head with a frying pan, because I just keep repeating myself. But there's a right way and a wrong way to pitch. And there's a right way and a wrong way to start a business, to get into business, to do business. We need to expose the right ways and dissuade the wrong ways, because it's going to help so many people.
Right. And just for the audience, maybe beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, Peter, but I'm always preaching, the first thing you should be pitching is benevolence. Number 1. Number 2 is trust. And number 3 is competence. And if you're doing it the other way around, you're doing it wrong. That's just what humans value.
Couldn't agree more. And I love the trust part so much, because without trust, I'm not going to invest. I have to really feel good about you. I have to feel good about your control of my money, whether it's in a business sense or in any other sense. But I really have to have that trust factor. So many people need to work on that. They may have a good business idea, but they just seem a little off, or I don't trust them. I'm not the confidence. Use the word confidence. So I think they go hand in hand. But I love that benevolence is number one.
I just quickly, I heard maybe a year and a half ago now on Clubhouse, a psychologist talking about exactly this. That's where I got that from. And his cute story, I thought, was if you're tasked, you and your group at your office, whatever environment you're in, to do, say, a very important PowerPoint presentation to senior executives or the board of directors, and you have your part and your colleague has their part, and you show up and you both do the presentation, and in his part of the PowerPoint or her part of the PowerPoint, there's typos and adding mistakes and just general incompetence. How do you feel about that? And the answer would be frustrated. You think they're incompetent, but you don't have a deep resonating hatred of that person. You just think they're incompetent, right? Whereas, is you had the same scenario, and you said to your colleague, "Is this done?" And they say, "Yeah, it's absolutely done." Not only that, but I sent it off to this third party and they proofread it and it's 100% perfect. And then you have the same problems. Well, now they lied to you. And now you have a much deeper psychological distrust and hatred of that person, right? And the reason is that humans value trust more than competence, right? And then the story, everybody does. That's just the human nature. And then it was, the next scenario was, say a colleague at that work comes to you and says, "Peter, I need some help. We got to run on an errand," the boss said. And, he takes you off in the car, he or she takes you off in the car, and you take a detour to the wrong place and you walk in and there's a surprise birthday party for you, right? You love this person. They lied to you, but you love this person because humans value benevolence more than trust. So benevolence, trust, confidence. And if you're you're pitching them backwards, you're doing it wrong. And everybody tries to pitch their competence first, right?
They do. I now I'm an old man, so I know better. But I remember when I first started, I led with the confidence, and now I think hopefully I lead with the benevolence. But I've never heard it put into words like that, and I've really enjoyed listening to you talk about this.
Told that, but that was a cool story, so I liked it. And I think when we were younger, we were always trying to overcome our perceived self-doubt. And so talk about competence all the time.
Yes, we were.
We're past that. Tell us, Peter, about your approach to business investments. What sort of deals are you looking at these days? And, how are you seeing the market? What's your criteria? All those sorts of things.
Scott, so much has changed so quickly. I used to have a pipeline for my core business is multifamily real estate. I used to have a pipeline. It was regular. It was active. It's really changed over the past 24 months. It's very dry. It's very thin. I don't have that same pipeline, but I want to grow and I want to stay in business and expand. So I've pivoted to new things. I've gotten into some new industries. I'm in cannabis now and different types of cannabis businesses, and then also the real estate.
What are you doing? You're leasing?
So I am a partner in the largest legal pot farm in the country, certainly in California, but based on land use permits, we think currently right now it's in the country. It's 134 permitted acres of grow in Santa Barbara County, California. And it's a hybrid indoor-outdoor grow. So it's, we use hoop houses and we have irrigation wells delivering very specific amounts of nutrients and hydration to the plants. And but it's outdoors. It's hoop houses outdoors, so it's a hybrid indoor-outdoor land use permitted farm, and it's an interesting market. There's black market activity still in California, but as this market grows and develops, we're poised to take advantage of the legal market. So that's one business. Are
you extracting as well, Peter?
And we're not extracting. We sell to people who extract. We sell trim and stem to people who extract. Another one is that we're property owners and landlords to a major MSO for some of their dispensaries. So that's a new business for us, but it's a single tenant special use property. It's a triple net lease, so there's different types of management concerns than we have with multifamily. We don't have really a similar set of management concerns, but new and different ones because it's cannabis. It's a new industry. People are trying to find their way. So we're landlords to some of the major MSOs, multi-state operators. And then the third business I'm in is I'm a partner in the largest indoor grow in the state of New Jersey. And because New Jersey, if we choose to grow outdoors, we're only going to get really one grow season. But the trick is to get multiple yields throughout the course of the year. So we do it indoors. It's very, very expensive, but we found a way to do it far less, more expensive than everybody else. And so, and also not only is our cost less, but the square footage and the amount of output we can generate makes it the largest in the state. New Jersey's a very supply constrained market. It's controlled by one group at the moment. So we're hoping to have some success with this. So again, new, but I've pivoted because my multifamily, my core business has dried up. I'm looking for things that I think, Scott, and aren't we all right? But I'm looking for things that are really easy for me to be able to say, yeah, there's demand, there's endless demand. I'm really looking for high demand opportunities. If I stop and have to think, well, is someone really going to buy that product? Is someone really going to need that service? Usually I don't proceed with the investment. I want to be hit in the face with a baseball bat and know immediately that the demand is
right.
So big and so there and without question. So I'm looking for high demand businesses, and that can come in the form of a lot of things. I've recently gotten into some of the trades businesses. I'm the owner of a plumbing company, an electrical company. I'm soon branching out and I'm going to have a HVAC mechanical company because I believe the trades are very undersupplied and there's nothing but demand. We see construction, renovations. We have a housing shortage everywhere. People are retrofitting office buildings into multifamily. They're retrofitting everything into everything. This all takes trades. It takes tradespeople and subcontractors and laborers. So I now own some businesses that's able to provide those services in my markets. I think they're going to be good businesses. And Scott, I think a day is coming in the not too distant future when we're going to be paying $1,000 an hour to call a plumber to fix a leaky toilet. Because, you know, when you call a plumber right now, you don't know if you can get them. They're all so busy. They're, you know, and they're expensive now anyway. But I think it's just going to keep becoming more expensive.
I'm really bullish on the trades. If I had a 15, 16-year-old right now, that would be my advice. You know, should I be a lawyer or should I be a carpenter? To me, the choice is easy.
It's an interesting time. You know, when you and I were kids, we had to go to school to become more employable. You know, we had to go to college if we wanted to earn money, right? If we wanted to be financially on a path somewhere, we needed a degree or we needed, you know, that's the way it was for us. But now that's just not the case. And everybody is leaving these historic businesses and getting into entrepreneurship, all these other things. But there's no new people coming into the trades. And I think that's where the money's going to be. I really do. I think they're going to be making very, very good six-figure incomes.
Now, Peter, part of what you do when you said you had to restrict distributions, for the audience members that don't know what that means, what it means is that you have third-party investors who are accredited investors or sophisticated investors, depending on your jurisdiction, and they invest in whatever structure you have. And then they get distributions from interest or earnings or exit of that particular deal. So that's what you mean when you say that, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you get into like a grow deal, are you also taking investors on that, or is that just on the real estate deals? Or
no, we have financial partners on both the outdoor farm in California and then the indoor grow in New Jersey. There's the capital. So I'll give you the capital stack in New Jersey. So the thing about the New Jersey business is getting the real estate and then having it be licensed. Those are the two biggest hurdles that you have to overcome first. Once you have an appropriate site and the building conforms to the list of requirements that the Cannabis Regulation Committee has established, you need to get it licensed by the town. And these towns are all over the place where they're licensing. It's very difficult to do. It's very expensive to do. It takes a long time. So we have the site, we have the real estate. The owner of the real estate contributed it. You'll find this interesting. They contributed the licensed real estate. That was their contribution to the deal. They didn't put up any cash, but they put up this very valuable piece of real estate that was licensed and ready to go. So now we needed an operator, someone who was very experienced at growing indoors. We wanted the best that there was. I didn't want, Bobby Smith from Metuchen, New Jersey, who was just trying this for his first time. We needed the biggest and best. So we brought in a group from California who's very experienced. They grow in Nevada, Arizona, and California. They're one of the only guys that do it right. They make money doing it. So now they're our partners. And they put up a little money. And then we went out to the accredited investor community and raised $15 million.
Wow.
And so now we've got the operational partner, the real estate partner, and the capital partners together. We're off to the races.
You might be my new hero. Do you commingle these deals in a fund, or is it?
No. Every deal is its own single purpose entity, its own group of owners. If you're a partner with me on the New Jersey deal, it doesn't mean you're a partner with me in California, although there are some that cross over. But it's not under the umbrella of one fund at all. I like the flexibility of having every business and every asset owned and operated as its own single special purpose entity and effort. For me, it provides flexibility when I'm borrowing, when I'm hiring and staffing, and there's no crossover into different industries, and I can really specialize on one business at a time. And for me, that's worked.
We talked about social media driving entrepreneurship, and a large part of what it drives is real estate investment and passive income. If you're 20 or 30 or 40, does passive income exist?
Scott, there's no such thing as passive income, because someone somewhere is working really hard. In my life, it's me. I'm working really hard to create passive income for me. It's not passive. People think that you can go sit on a beach, you can do these things passively. They hear the word passive and they're like, oh, I like the idea of that because it means I'm not working. I'm sitting on my ass, which is really indicative of, I think, culturally where we are today. There's people that want to earn money but not work. And I get very agitated by the whole concept. You can see I'm coming out of my chair a little bit. I'm starting to vibrate. But there's no such thing, Scott, to me, as passive income. It doesn't exist.
I can't. I don't even have anything to come back with you. I'm so on that. I listened to somebody's podcast. Feels like maybe a year ago now. I don't know who it was, and he had taken an argument from another person's podcast, and it was specifically. I can drop these names. Neither of us know. Well, I don't. Maybe you do. But it was Cardone, and it was Robert Kiyosaki. I don't really know this person, but an author. And they were in a heated argument. And it boiled down to large deal versus small deal if you're trying to get into real estate investment. And Cardone's whole pitch, as far as I understood it through the yelling, was that you want to have as many units as possible to amortize the property management expense. Otherwise, you're screwed. And of course, there's a bias to that advice because he's trying to tell you can't do it. You got to go in his fund. That's the only way to possibly accomplish that. Whereas the other guy was saying that's ridiculous. You need to start super small and learn what you're doing and grow from there. If you're talking to entrepreneurs or people younger in their careers looking to invest in that sort of space, what are your thoughts on that debate?
It's a great debate. I think, Scott, for young people starting off in the near term to get started, start small. You have to gain the skill. You have to gain the mindset. You have to gain some experience because I'm not going to take you seriously if you're pitching me to invest. I'm not going to take you seriously if you want to work with me or if you want to talk to me about what you're doing. I'm just not going to take you seriously unless you've got some skin in the game, you've got some experience under your belt. So start small. It's okay to start small, but long-term have a growth and a larger perspective and expect that you'll grow and do larger and bigger and better things, because the truth is it is more economically beneficial to have more units under one roof than less. I mean, when I've got a 200 unit property, I've got 200 units. If 5 units go vacant, I've got 5 out of 200 that are vacant. If I've got a 20 unit property and 5 units go vacant, I'm 25% vacancy rate. And so the impact of those 5 vacant units on a small property is much greater. With a 20 unit property, I've got 1 boiler and 1 roof for 20 units as opposed to more units to spread those costs over both capital costs and operating expense. If I have to buy a new boiler, if I have to buy a new roof, I can spread it out over more units. The economies of scale are simply more favorable as you grow and expand. But here's the thing that people don't know. You don't have to have one property that's 200 or 300 units. You can have 20 properties that are 20, 30, 50 units, and you can build up scale that way.
Exactly.
I mean, it's very hard to do, but we're in the business of working hard, right? So you can do it. They're both right. I think you were explaining that debate to me. I'm a fan of Mr. Kiyosaki. I think he's taught a lot of people a lot of things about business and how to really interpret and work the system, so to speak. If he says start small, and I'm familiar with when he says that, he's talking about gaining some experience and just continuing along that path. You can always grow. But I tell you, I won't take you seriously if you come to me with a 300 unit deal and you've never done a 300 unit deal. I'm just not going to be interested.
Right. And while we're on this topic, if one was looking to invest in a fund instead of trying to figure this all out themselves, I think on your website there's a questionnaire which will help you understand or help one understand whether they qualify to invest in your fund. Is that true? And what would the website?
That's true, because in the frothy world that we've lived in for the past 12 years, a lot of people have been interested to make investments in real estate, but they're not qualified. So what we did was we put up an accredited investor questionnaire just to help people understand if in fact they're accredited or not. To invest with me and do business with me, Scott, you have to be accredited. There are other people, places, and websites and groups that you can invest with that don't require accreditation. But I'm not one of them. I choose to only work with accredited investors, and I suggest that everybody out there become familiar with what that means, because it's going to give you something to shoot for.
And what it means specifically for the audience, people listening in, people might be interested, is basically whatever relevant securities commission has said, you know what, if you make enough money, if you have enough wealth, then you can skip all of these protections and make your own stupid decision. And if you don't, then the person offering you this financial product has to do a whole bunch of things more. And that's basically what an accredited investor is. You meet a wealth test or a income test or both, right?
Yeah, they really wanted to prevent people who are raising money to take money from, and I hate the way this example is, but it's an old school example, from sweet old ladies, Like they didn't want to rob people that didn't have the wherewithal to make these investments of their money. So,
Peter, as we start to wind this up, I ask every guest, when things are going wrong in a business, things are going wrong in your life, it really doesn't matter. What advice do you have? The 3 go-to actions or mindsets that you might have to change momentum.
I think momentum for me starts with having a lot of hustle and a lot of sense of urgency. So I tell people all the time, on a daily basis, have a major sense of urgency and run like the devil's chasing you. But in the long term, have a lot of patience, because things take time and you need to develop them. So on a day-to-day basis, you're running, but on an annual or a decades-long basis, you're going to have patience and watch it grow. It seems odd to say that they both can coexist in the same time and in the same place, but they really have to. And that's helped me a lot, because I wake up every day and I just want to get out there and start pounding away. And I do. And then I come home at night and I feel like if I have a long-term perspective, I'm doing okay. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is communication skills, public speaking skills, presentation skills, marketing. Like, we need to know how to talk to people and address a group, address individuals. If you don't have these skills, you have to go get them. They don't teach this stuff in school, no matter if it's college or high school. They don't teach it on the job. Just the world sort of expects you to either be good at it or not. And if you're not good at it, you're not going to get rewarded. Learn how to publicly speak and present, make eye contact, have the tone of voice, a volume, a projection, all that stuff. Stand in front of a mirror like the Hollywood actors do and practice in front of a mirror. See how weird you look or how great you look and make little adjustments. Like, whatever the little tricks are, you can do. For me, I was a musician as a kid. I used to get up on stage and play guitar and sing in front of a lot of people. So I was very comfortable. addressing a crowd. And that really carried forward to my adult life in business.
I think we need to start wrapping this up. We've hit the top of the hour. Anything else you wanted to cover while we were on?
No, I think this was a really enjoyable discussion for me. I love talking about business. I love talking about markets, investing. This is so great. I feel like you're my brother from another mother because you're obviously so interested in these things as well. And I can't thank you enough for having me here because I don't have these opportunities so much. And I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Appreciate it. Should we sell some cookies before we go?
Oh, man. Scott, we got about 10 days left to sell some Girl Scout cookies.
The show will be out on time.
My man George can help you and send you a link. But if you guys wouldn't mind, my daughter's a Girl Scout. She's selling Girl Scout cookies. She's really learning the skills of selling and making pitches to people to buy cookies. And she's making videos and she's really putting in the work. She's not just standing outside your local CVS trying to sell a box or two. She's up to about 1,000 boxes right now. She's trying to hit 1,500 boxes in the next 10 days. And we're going to help get her together. It's really nice that you offer to do that. We're going to put up a link, hopefully, and you're supporting the Girl Scouts. They're $5 or $6 a box, and you can buy many and give them out to your employees. Thank you.
How old is your daughter? Because I've been very impressed with her on social media clips. And
thank you. My daughter's 8 years old. Hey, Abigail. She's in the office with me today.
Mine's 9. That's why I was asking.
Oh, you have a 9-year-old. So Abigail's 8. Come here, sweetie. I'm on a podcast with my friend Scott in Canada, and he's asking about you. This is Abigail. She's 8. And
8, I hear.
Yeah, you know what to do. Come on.
We have gluten-free cookies, which are $6 a box. And then we have the classics that are $5 a box.
Awesome. And that's George. And that's Scott. We're going to put up a link. Scott was nice enough to ask about this. We're taking up way too much time, but he asked about you, and I wanted to introduce you to Scott and all of his audience.
It was very nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Peter, how and why should people reach out to you?
Wow. They can reach out to me through my website, siegelcapital.com, or any of the social media platforms that you prefer to be on. We're on all of them. We're out there every day just talking about this kind of stuff, Scott, business, investing, entrepreneurship, mindset. We're trying to help people have the tools that they need. You can reach out to me at any one of those platforms on the website. And I tell you, you should reach out to me if you enjoy this kind of dialogue, if you enjoy direct, unfiltered discussion about business and how to achieve and how to succeed. I mean, I think that's what I enjoy too. And I think we'll enjoy connecting with each other. You said at the outset that I have a Wall Street background with some Street Fighter cred, and I'm very proud of that. So if you're looking for someone that's not just academic, but who also drags their knuckles on the pavement every day, guys, I think you'll find that I'm that guy, and maybe we can do something great together. And, I'm out there doing it every day. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me on the Winning Momentum podcast. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will talk to you next week. There'll be links for Peter in the notes, and also for the cookies, I believe, will be in the notes as well. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Scott, very much. Thank you.